of you who are doing the editing, this is the formal start of class. Right now, we'll do a little invocation in a minute, but Iyengar yoga is based on the principles of yoga practice that was developed by a man named Iyengar. And he died not long ago, actually, probably 4 or 5 years ago, but he was a longtime practitioner of yoga. And the method has continued through the teachings of his daughter, Gita Iyengar, who died recently, his son Prashant, who's still alive and teaching in India, and now the main lineage holder is his granddaughter, Abhijata Iyengar. And generally speaking, I'd say that the Iyengar yoga
Can we do this?
is very systematic, and it is both got texts that guide our practice, like Light on Yoga, which is what I have now here. And at the same time, it's a living tradition. Light on Yoga was written and published in 1966, same year that I was born, same year of the Super Bowl being born. So I like to say it was a very auspicious year. And it's still really I would say the central text that we guide our practice by. But there are many other books that are written by the Iyengars that are also part of the Iyengar tradition. It emphasizes alignment and balance. It's kind of known for using props, but you don't have to use props to do yoga. And it just, what I like about it most is it's a systematic approach. And I think it makes it easy to learn, and it makes it easier to teach because there is just a method, let's say, to the madness that we're engaged in here.
I'm just going to send you a text because I need to send something to, like a link to someone.
Okay. Someone's audio is on, so just letting you know. Okay, so what we're doing in the first part of the year is working with sequences that are in the back of Light on Yoga. So if you have Light on Yoga and you want to follow along with those sequences, you can open it to the appendix, but I'm going to tell you what the sequence is throughout the class, so that's not necessary. Just some people like to look at it. And this is one method that Mr. Iyengar presented in a way of learning the poses. So we're on the sequence for week 4 right now, and we'll look at how the poses in that sequence show up throughout different clans of poses. And what I mean by clans of poses are like standing poses, forward bends, backward bends, inversions, supine poses. Basically, you can see a pose like triangle pose show up in various, let's say, variations in the different clans. And so we're going to do some of that work today. All right. So welcome, everyone. And we're going to sit in a pose that's called Sukhasana. And Sukhasana, you cross your legs right at the middle of your shins. And then move your feet out so that they're right underneath your knees. And then flex your feet. Sometimes we work with the feet turned where the sole of the foot goes up toward the ceiling. But this work with flexing the feet and having the heels out underneath the knees gives us more access to feeling some firmness in the outer hips. And if you don't feel that, you can actually energetically pull your little toe sides of the feet toward each other. Then use your hands and turn your thighs from the inside. This is the inside right here, out. And then do that on both legs. And you can work from the top of the leg, the middle of the leg, and the part of the leg by the knee. And then sometimes it feels like your calf flesh gets a little bit stuck on this shin bone. So you can also move your calf flesh up toward the ceiling. You don't have to turn the feet here, but instead energetically pull your feet toward each other and feel how that creates firmness in the hips and a lift that comes into the chest. Lengthen up through your side ribs. Roll your shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body and up a little bit so you feel your chest get nice and lifted and broad. If you're wearing glasses, take them off for this next part, and then close your eyes and fold your palms together to your heart. Taking the glasses off helps your eyes relax, but it's also a symbolic gesture that what we're doing through the practice of yoga is cultivating the ability to turn our senses of perception from the outer world toward the inner world. That inner landscape of you, which is the true domain of yoga. Then inhale from the tailbone all the way up through the head, make yourself tall. Keep that height, and as you exhale, move the prana, or the energy of the breath, outward toward your side ribs and armpits. Inhale, make yourself tall. Exhale, make yourself broad. Inhale, extend yourself. Exhale, expand yourself. That's another central feature of Iyengar yoga. Iyengar yoga cultivates the ability to extend your awareness and expand your consciousness through every cell of your being. And to that end, let's chant 3 Ams together. Follow that sound with your mind. Follow the reverberation of the sound with your mind. And from that space, inhale once more. Keeping your chest well lifted and broad, bring your chin down to your chest, your hands down to your thighs with your palms up, and then raise your head and open your eyes. Then go ahead and stretch your legs out straight into a pose that's called Dandasana, or staff pose. And if you happen to have a yoga strap handy, or if you don't have a yoga strap, really anything will work, like a piece of rope, a dog leash, even like a winter scarf, just something that you can put on the top of the heels, lower part of the arch, and long enough that you can hold onto it with your hands without leaning forward. If you don't have it, it's fine. You can just put your hands at your sides and press down with your hands and lift up into the armpits. But if you do have a strap, what's nice about the strap is it gives you a little bit more ability to pull the little toe side of the foot up toward the outer hip. And it also gives you this ability to turn the arms so that the biceps face up toward the ceiling, and you'll feel more of a lift come into the chest. That's what the strap does. Now, when you work without the strap and just have your hands by your sides, that works really well too. You press the palms down, and it helps you get some vertical extension in the sides of the torso. And it also creates a lift in the chest. And it also stretches the wrists, which is good. And we need that for a lot of poses in yoga. All right. So the first pose of this particular sequence, the week 4, 3, and 4 sequence, is Trikonasana, or triangle pose. Okay. That's another hallmark of the Iyengar method, is you get to learn a little bit of Sanskrit along the way. So now you know the Sanskrit name for Trikonasana. But like I was mentioning, Trikonasana, triangle pose, has cousins or siblings in a lot of other poses. For instance, in some supine poses. So what we're going to do, if you have 2 blankets, you can see that I've turned them so that the corner of the blankets are facing toward the front of the room. If you don't have blankets, it's totally fine. You just will sit on the floor, all right? But if you do have blankets, and they don't have to be special yoga blankets, as long any kind of firm blanket will work, even some folded towels. If you happen to have some big towels in your house that aren't too puffy, you could fold those up. And then we're going to sit with our legs out wide. And also when you are sitting with this little triangle here, mine's not quite straight yet, so you should actually see a good bit of the triangle, like a little bit of a square in front of you, and there's still blanket back behind you. So this is a bit of the mat of the blanket that's coming in front of me. Okay. All right. Again, if you don't have it, you can still do the pose. It's fine. All right. So now, just like we did in, this is called Upavishtakonasana, which means seated wide angle pose. Okay. So the legs are clearly in a wide angle, and we're seated. So you can kind of see why the pose is named that. Now spread the toes away from each other, just like we did in Dandasana. And imagine that you had a strap on the little toe side of the foot, and you energetically draw up into your outer hips. Now lengthen up through your side ribs and roll your shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades in, away from the neck and into the center of the body. and up a little bit so your chest gets lifted and broad. And just for now, put your hands back behind you. If your palms reach the floor, great, or the blankets, you can push down with your palms. If they don't, you can make a cup shape with your fingers and cup your fingers and press your fingertips down toward the floor. So this is just the basic, this is one at like a beginning stage of triangle pose. Now to make it be more like triangle pose, go ahead and stretch your arms out like you would when you were doing triangle pose and some of the other lateral angle poses. Now, as you reach your arms out, stretch even more through your ring fingers so that your triceps pull more onto the bone of your legs. And then move your shoulder blades in, away from the neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit here. So you should feel nice broadness and length across the collarbones. All right, then having done that, go ahead and bring your one hand down in front of you on the, if you have the blankets, hold onto the blankets, and the other hand back behind you. Keep your leg actions going the whole time. And so what that means is you lift the quadriceps, lift the inner thighs, and draw up from the little toe side of the foot. Then push down with your hands and lengthen up from the tailbone through the head. And then as you exhale, turn and rotate yourself to look over your left leg. Now, as you're doing that rotation, the torso moves away from the right leg, just like it does in triangle pose. And then lengthen up from the sides of the torso again. And then as you exhale, turn and rotate yourself around. If you have the blankets, what you're doing with the blankets is you're pushing the blanket forward toward that wall with one hand and pulling the blanket with your hand behind you. So the work of the arms on the blankets helps you rotate even more. Then push down with both hands and come all the way back to the center. Then put the other hand in front of you, other hand back behind you. Push down with your hands and lengthen up from the tailbone all the way up through the head. And then as you exhale, turn and rotate yourself around. And with this hand, the front hand, I'm pushing the blanket back that way. And when I do that, my ribs rotate around more. With the arm behind me, I'm pulling on the blanket the opposite way. And that helps me bring my ribs around more. Oops, I said that wrong. Sorry, with the front hand, you pull forward. And with the back hand, you pull back. Is that right? They both work, actually. But that's correct. Pull forward with the front hand and back with the back hand. That's easier to remember. Then press down with your sitting bones, lengthen up from the tailbone through the head and come all the way back to the center. Okay. All right. We're going to stand up and do triangle pose. But what I want you to just, one more time, just go to the first side briefly. Okay. So in this pose, you can clearly see that your torso is moving away from this leg, right? And then just go briefly to the second side. The torso is moving away from this leg. So when we stand up and do triangle pose, if you have a block and you want to use it, feel free, but you don't have to use it. You've got your shin, and it's there. So we start off with our legs out wide. Okay? This is the first stage of Trikonasana, and you can stretch your arms out. So it's probably pretty obvious this is exactly the same thing that we were doing on the floor, right? Okay, for now, bring your hands down. Now, one thing that's a little different about Trikonasana than Upavishta Konasana is you have to turn your feet. So lift up on your left toes and turn your left toes in. And lift up on your right toes and turn your right leg out this way. Now, here's where the Upavishta comes in. What tends to happen in triangle pose is that our torso wants to go with the turn of the leg. But you don't want that to happen. You're going to keep your cut. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking hold of my yoga pants and I'm pulling my torso back toward the front of the room. Okay. So the leg is externally rotating, but as much as possible, your torso turns away from the leg. Okay. All right, then stretch your arms out, shoulder blades in, away from the neck and into the center of the body. Then pressing into your back heel, reach out with your front arm and bring it down to the brick. Or if you don't have a brick, bring it to your shin. Now, when you come down, probably the torso is turned a little bit away. So take your top hand, put it on your pants again, and turn and rotate your torso away from the front leg. Okay. Then add your top arm. Then turn your head to look up toward the ceiling. Then press into your back heel, the one that's not turned out. Pull with this top arm and bring yourself all the way back up. Turn your feet back into the center. And then go ahead and walk back into Tadasana or jump if you feel like jumping. Lift your quadriceps. Those are the muscles at the front of your thighs. Lengthen up through your side ribs and roll the shoulder bones back. Shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body and up a little bit. And stretch those fingers down toward the floor, particularly through the ring finger, so your tricep muscles engage and you get more lift in the chest. Then walk your feet out wide again. This particular stage of the pose, it's called Utthita Hasta Padasana. It means extended hand and foot pose. All right, so spread your toes away from each other. Press into your heels, lift your quadriceps and your inner thighs. Then stretch your arms out, reach through your ring fingers, let your shoulders release away from your ears. So right now the torso is straight ahead, and turn your back right toes in and your front left leg out. And as you do that, you'll probably feel the torso wants to go with the leg. So you're gonna take your hold of your pants, okay, and pull that torso back so it's more straight ahead. Keep your quadriceps lifted, press into your back heel, reach out with your hand, and come all the way down to your brick or your shin. All right, then what typically happens is the torso goes with the leg again. So turn that torso away from the leg. Then reach your arm up, extend from the tailbone through the head, and turn your head to look up at the ceiling if it doesn't bother your neck. If it does, you can keep it in line with the spine. Then press into your back heel, pull with your top arm and come all the way up. Turn your feet back to the center and walk your feet back into Tadasana. All right, and then go ahead and sit down again on the floor in Upavishta Konasana. The second pose in this sequence is a pose called Parshva Konasana, or side angle pose. And what's different about that pose as opposed to Trikonasana is one leg is bent. And it's bent at a 90-degree angle. So basically what we're doing now is a seated version of Parshva Konasana, turning. So it's more like the pose Marichyasana 1. Okay, but you're at this, which is a twist. Okay, so you're at this 90-degree angle with your leg. Okay. This leg does all the same work. Spread the toes, draw up from the little toe side of the foot into the outer hip, lift the quadricep, lift the inner thigh. As much as possible, whenever the leg is straight, you do those actions. Okay? Those actions are pretty consistent regardless of the pose, as long as the leg is straight. There's some other things you have to do sometimes. Okay? Now, extend through the big toe side of your foot on the bent leg foot. Reach your arm up. Lengthen from the pelvis all the way up through the sides of the body through the arm. Turn your torso away from your leg. Then bring your arm down to the inside of your bent leg. Then lengthen up from the tailbone through the head. And then you're going to exhale and turn away from the bent leg, toward your front leg. Push the arm and the knee against each other to turn even more. Inhale, lengthen up from the tailbone through the head. And then exhale, turn and look toward your straight leg. Then slide your leg down, arm down your leg, so that hopefully the back of the shoulder comes alongside the knee. And then exhale, turn and rotate again by pushing the shoulder and the knee against each other. Then reach your other arm up and reach and extend through the sides of the torso, but keep turning your torso toward and your head toward the straight leg. So that's really just like a seated Parshva Konasana. It's a lovely twist. All right, then come back to Upavishta Konasana. Okay. Now we have to do the other side. Okay. So lift your leg up just to making a 90-degree angle, or to making a 90-degree angle. You can lean a little bit away from your leg and move. Same action. You're turning the torso away from the leg. Okay. Then get some length in the sides of the torso and reach up with your arm. So you're lengthening the Parshva Konasana, Parshva side of your body. And keep the length as much as you can as you bring your arm down with this bent leg stage first. Push the arm and the knee against each other to help your torso turn away from the bent leg and toward your straight leg, which is hopefully doing all of its actions. And its actions are little toe to outer hip, quadriceps lift, inner thighs lift, extend from the inner knee through the inner heel. That's what I mean by leg actions. You just do them. and then turn again. All right, now to make it be even a little bit more like Parshvakonasana, reach down and get your foot with your hand. And see when you did that, how the torso turned toward the leg. So turn the torso away from the leg. Push the elbow and the knee against each other. Turn and rotate your torso again. And see how much more turn you get in this pose. And then reach your arm way, way up. You can even lean a little bit over away from your straight leg. But keep turning your torso toward the wall or even really toward the armpit. So you're looking up toward the ceiling. All right, then come back to the center and stretch your leg out again. And then bring your legs back into the center into Dandasana and stand up. Okay, so the pose, Parshvakonasana, side angle pose. We just basically did it sitting, so let's do it standing now. It's classic form. So walk your feet out wide. You can have a brick handy, but you may not need it. And we're gonna do the pose Parshvakonasana with the hand on the inside of the leg. So it starts off the same way as triangle pose. Your legs are out wide. Leg actions, which means quadriceps, inner thighs, little toe side of the foot. Turn your back left toes in and your front right leg out. Make your torso go away from the leg. Okay. Keep the torso going away from the leg as you bend the knee. Okay. And then go ahead and bring your elbow down to rest on your thigh. Try not to sink into the leg, though the leg does go down, but turn like we did in seated. Turn your torso away from the leg. And you can even use your elbow or forearm to externally rotate the leg and turn more. Then remember how we slid down and got the foot, turn still more. And then add your arm and turn still more and look up toward the ceiling. And press into your back heel, reach with your top arm and come all the way up. Turn your feet back to the center. If you need a little break between the sides, you can always come into Tadasana. Yeah. But it's also taught in Iyengar yoga that you can keep your legs out wide and do the second side. Yeah. Go ahead and proactively hold on to your shorts and turn them as you bend the knee. And turn a little bit away from the leg as you bring your elbow down to the to the thigh, and sit a little lower. Turn away from your leg and move the forearm back toward the wall behind you so the leg externally rotates a little bit more and you get a little bit more turn. Then reach your hand down toward the floor or your foot. Push the elbow on the knee and turn. Then add the top arm. Press into your back heel, reach through the sides of the torso, extend through the ring fingers, and then push into your back heel and come all the way up. Turn the feet back to the center. And walk your feet in and stand in Tadasana. And hopefully you feel some openness. You might feel it horizontally. You might feel it vertically around the pelvic region. And hopefully you might feel a little bit more firmness or compaction of the outer hip muscles. That's what the standing and the seated pose work does. And Susanna, I think it was, asking about Iyengar yoga is a method. When I just asked you to observe what you felt, that is cultivating awareness and of your body, ultimately for many other things. But that's also what we're asked as Iyengar yoga teachers to cultivate in our students, is that awareness of what's happening in the body. And there's a Sanskrit word for that awareness, which is called viveka. And you're really cultivating a sense of discrimination in a good way. Ultimately, that leads to the ability to discern between right and wrong action. So by observing what happens in our body from a yoga pose, we're building up this capacity to discern, which leads the ability to make finer and more distinct choices in our lives about what will be best for us in the world. Okay, so that's the second pose in the book. That's the second pose in the sequence. The third pose in the sequence is Virabhadrasana 1. Okay. All right, so if you have yourself set up near a wall, you can put your back heel at the wall and it will make the pose easier. If you don't, it's okay. You can do it right in the middle of the room. But your left heel is going to be at the wall and your left toes are turned outward at about, well, actually, sorry, I said that wrong. Yeah, they're turned away from the wall at about a 60-degree angle. Then take a big step forward with your right leg. Now, when you do that, okay, we've got this torso leg situation happening again. Okay. The torso wants to go with the back leg, but the shape of the pose, the torso actually turns away from the back leg. So you can use your shorts again to help that happen. Okay. Now, when I do that, the other thing I feel is my back leg wants to bend a little bit. So push your back heel into the wall and straighten your back leg as much as you can. You may feel a pretty strong sensation of stretch in your front groin. Okay, that's the first pose where we learn, oh wow, I really need that front groin opening, and you need it for a lot of poses in yoga. Okay. Go ahead and keep your hands on your hips for a bit. Okay. Then press your back heel into the wall and then bend your knee to form a square. Similar to Parshvakonasana, it's just that you're facing the other way. When I bent and formed the square, I actually felt my back leg give way. So push your heel into the wall and straighten your back leg. And reach your arms above your head. Sit a little bit lower. Join your palms above your head with your arms as straight as you can. Sit lower. And then from the tailbone through the head, extend through the spine and look back toward the wall behind you. To come up, check in at your back leg. Is it still straight? And then come all the way back up, release your hands down, and come into Tadasana. All right, second side. So your left toes are going to be right toes are going to be at the wall, front left leg out. Even here, just before you even begin, okay, I can tell, you know what? My back leg is not straight. So I'm going to straighten my back leg. Then I'm going to turn my torso away from that straight back leg. When I do that, it bends a little bit, so I'm going to straighten it again. Keeping my back leg as straight as possible and my hands on my hips, bend your knee, or your knee, not really demoing. Turn again toward the front leg. Then reach your arms up. Join your palms together, and then sit a little bit lower. Extend from the tailbone all the way through the crown of the head and arch your head backward if it doesn't hurt your neck, and sit lower still. Make your back leg be straight, and then come all the way up. Release your hands down and come to stand in Tadasana. Okay. If you have a strap, you might need it for when we lie down again, but we're going to do a version of a pose that's called Supta Padangusthasana 3. Supine foot and big toe pose, the third stage of it. Okay. And in it, you grab your big toe, okay, but you put your arm behind your head. So I want to teach you the arm behind the head part while we're standing, okay? So reach your right arm up, left arm, or whatever, it doesn't really matter, whichever arm you want to lift up. Try and move your arm behind your head, if you can. Make sure your triceps turning from the outside in, and then bend your elbow. And when I bend my elbow, it's really right back behind my head. Then move your hand so it's outside of your head. Okay. So my hand's over here. It's going to catch my big toe in the full pose. Now push your head into your elbow, and as you do that, you should feel some nice opening coming into the side of the armpit. All right, and then release your arm and bring it back down. Same thing on the other side. Reach your arm way, way, way up. Turn the tricep from the outside in. Move the arm back behind the ear. Keep your head as straight as possible. Bend your elbow. Okay. So the elbow hopefully goes right behind the head. Look, my head went to my elbow, so I want it to be straight. I'm going to try and move my arm over a little bit more. And then this hand right here eventually is going to hold the foot or the big toe of the opposite leg. And push your head back into your arm and feel that opening coming into the armpit. Okay. And then release that arm down. And then lie down on the floor. Have a strap handy. We're going to use it in the next pose. And you're going to lie down on the floor with both of your knees bent. If you can, hold on to the sides of the sticky mat and give a little pull with your hands towards your feet, and that'll help you release your trapezius muscles. All right, now remember Parsvakonasana when we bent the leg to the side. Yeah. Same angle, put your leg up by your knee. Okay. So here we've got Parsvakonasana lying down. Kristen, you're just gonna stay in this part, and then when we do the Supta 3, you go out to the side in Supta 2, okay? So this is a fine hip opener just right here. Okay. Then pull your legs up in a little closer to your torso. Flex through the little toe side of the foot. Okay. Then if you're not on your cycle, if you're not pregnant, there's nothing, you want to do a sit-up, okay? Drawing the pubis and the navel toward each other. And it lifts the torso off the ground. Then you can use your hands to pull the leg in a little bit more. And then lower your torso back down. And then undo that leg. And then just stretch your legs out into Supta Tadasana for a second. And see if you can feel a little good effect on that inner groin of your right leg from having done the beginning stages of Supta Padangushtasana 3. Then bend your legs up again. Pull on the sticky mat with your hands, and it should feel like a nice little release for your trapezius. And you should also feel, and your lower back. A lot of good happens. Then externally rotate your leg again so it comes into the Parsvakonasana angle. Like we did when we were sitting, you can use your hand to externally rotate that thigh a little bit more. Then from the little toe side of the foot, draw up into the outer hips. Yeah. If it's appropriate for you to go to the next stage, you lift your legs up off the floor and push the Parsvakonasana leg toward your torso. And as you're doing that, you're still externally rotating the leg away from your torso. Now again, if it's appropriate for your particular condition, exhale and do a sit-up and draw your pubis and your navel toward each other. The more you can get up, actually, the easier it will be to do this pose, or the final stage of the pose. Then go ahead and add your hands, and you can use the strength of the arm now to pull and open that hip a little bit more. Make sure you're still moving from the little toe side of the foot to both feet. All right, good job. Release and come down and stretch your legs out again into Supta Tadasana. Now you should feel a little bit more evenness in the opening of the front groin. Okay, so that's an example of how Parsvakonasana comes into numerous poses. All right, so let's remember the arm thing that we were doing. Okay, so at this point you may need a strap, and if you, again, it doesn't have to be a yoga strap. It could be any piece of fabric, okay, to use. So you don't have to have a yoga strap. Then bend up your leg again. Then you're going to take your strap and put it on your right foot. And you're going to hold the strap with your right hand. Okay? Strap on right foot, right hand. Okay? Now keep your left leg where it is, but do that sit up, okay? And bring your whole leg closer to your torso. And then hook your elbow behind your head. Now here's where Virabhadrasana 1 comes in. You have to straighten out the bottom leg. And ideally it'll go toward to the floor and be completely straight. And you'll probably feel, wow, that's a lot of stretch on my bottom leg. And I first learned that in Virabhadrasana 1, but here it's showing up again. It actually went very well for me today. And then the alternative to that pose for pregnancy and menstruation would be just bringing the leg out to the side, which actually feels quite nice. So why doesn't everyone do that? Okay. And you bring your leg out to the side for Supta Padangushtasana 2. Oh, wow, look, it's just like triangle pose again, particularly if you stretch your left arm out and turn your head to look toward the left leg. And if you move your left leg out a little bit, it's even more like triangle pose. Bring the left leg in, bring the right leg up. Stretch both legs out into Supta Tadasana again. All right, so second side. It's going well. Bend both of your knees. Pull on the sticky mat if you want to. Cross your leg again. Again, if you're pregnant or menstruating, you can go right out to the side for Supta Padangusthasana 2. All right, so this time, rather than pulling the leg in, you're going to use we'll put the strap on your foot. Pull the leg, hold on to the strap with your left hand. It's a left hand, left foot. Pull the leg in. Now, the more of a sit-up you can do, the closer your elbow is going to be to your head. So then can you hook your elbow behind your head? If you can't, just hold on to the leg. So this is Parshvakonasana. Now the bottom leg, it stretches out toward the floor. You can either work keeping it straight in the air, or you can bend the knee to the floor and try and straighten it. That intensity of the bottom leg, we first learn in Virabhadrasana 1. Then release your head from your elbow, straighten the leg out, and go out to the side for a pose called Supta Padangusthasana 2. Supta just means supine, Padangushtha means hand on big toe. And it's just like laying down triangle pose, particularly when you stretch the right arm out and turn your head to look to the right. You can even move your right leg out to the side of the sticky mat and turn the toes in a little bit. It'll be even more like triangle pose. Then bring your right leg back in, turn your head up to the center, pull your left leg back up, and then come back into Supta Tadasana. All right. And then bend your knees, roll to your side, and come all the way up. Right, the next pose in the sequence, and so far the sequence in Light on Yoga is actually exactly the same as week 1 and week 2, is Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. Okay. So you're going to stand with your legs out wide, and then we get a new pose. Very exciting. Okay. Spread your toes, turn your back toes in, turn your front left leg out, turn your torso away from your leg, stretch your arms out, press into your back heel, and bend your front knee to form a square. And this time torso just stays upright. I'm not quite in the square, so I'm going to bend again. Walk my feet out a little bit lower and see if I can get a little bit more parallel with my thigh. Then turn your head to look at the battle in front of you, but reach back with your arm like you're pulling out a bow, an arrow that you're getting ready to shoot in the war, or metaphorical war. Turn your feet back to the center, walk your feet in. All right, second side. Walk your feet out wide. Same actions of the legs. Stretch your arms out. Turn your back toes in, turn your front leg out. Torso turns away from the leg. Then press into your back heel, extend through your back arm. From your outer hip, bend your knee to try and form that square. Turn your head to look forward. Reach back with your arms, so as much as possible, the extension of the arms is keeping you balanced through the midline of your body. All right, and then come all the way back up, turn your feet back to the center, and walk your feet in. All right, so thus far, the first 4 poses were the same as week 1 and week 2, and that's triangle pose, side angle pose, warrior 1 and warrior 2. Okay. So 4 weeks, Mr. Iyengar has us starting with those poses, or has those poses in. Week 1 actually had Tadasana and Vrikshasana first, but so for me, that means, okay, those 4 poses must be really pretty central to practice, right? Because he wants us to spend a month doing them. Actually, we continue to do them for quite some time. But now in the week 3 and 4, he adds another pose. He actually adds 2 other poses. And the first pose that he adds is Parivrita Trikonasana, revolved triangle pose. Okay. All right, so bring your back left toes against the wall, just like we did for Warrior 1. Okay. And take a big step forward with your right leg. Okay. And now look, we've got that same back leg thing, right? Just like the bottom leg that we did lying down. So here's another opportunity to keep your legs straight. Lift your butt and open the front groin. Another opportunity to turn the torso toward Warrior 1. But what happens in Parivrita, which means revolve triangle pose, is the torso turns even more, and Tay and Krista, you just do as much as is appropriate for you. Okay? The torso turns, and you reach and bring your hand down to a brick or to your shin or to the floor. Keep pressing into your back heel. Extend from the tailbone through the head. Exhale, turn and rotate your torso toward the right. And then stretch out your arm. And then, if you can, stretch out your arm. And then turn your head if you can. And then come all the way back up. And then walk your feet in. Feel that opening of the front groin and the opening of the chest from the twist. So that's actually the first revolve twist, right? Where we're actually turning across the front leg. We've had twisting, a little bit of twisting in Trikonasana and Parsvakonasana, turning away from the back leg. Okay? And then you continue that in Parsvakonasana. In back leg, okay? I can feel it giving way. So I'm going to push my thigh back and straighten that leg and push the heel into the wall. Then start turning your torso away from the back leg and keep turning your torso. Even in this upright phase, you can really turn. And then when you turn, slide your hand down, again, either to the floor or your shin or your brick. Press into your back heel. We're a little wobbly here today. Extend from the tailbone through the head and rotate your torso. And stretch your arm up if it doesn't hurt your shoulder. Turn your head toward your ceiling if it doesn't hurt your neck. And then come all the way back up. And then stand in Tadasana again. Hopefully you should feel yourself getting taller after each Tadasana. All right, let's sit back down on the floor. Okay. Have your triangle blankets again. And sit back down in Upavishtakonasana. Having that little bit of fabric in front of you so there's a little bit more thigh support. Now remember way back at the beginning of class when we did this turning away from the leg and I said it was like triangle pose. That's true. But what's fascinating to me about this upright Parsvakonasana action is it also is at the same time Parivrita Trikonasana, okay? Because we're turning toward the front leg, right? So this would be the front leg of Parivrita Trikonasana. This would be the front leg of Trikonasana, okay? And then they get combined in this turn. So inhale up from the tailbone through the head. Exhale, turn and rotate your torso away from your Trikonasana leg, but toward your Parivrita Trikonasana part of your leg. And push your hands, lengthen up from the tailbone through the head and come back to the center. And then do the same thing to the other side. And this would be like the front leg of Trikonasana that you're turning away from. Okay? This would be like the front leg of revolve triangle pose that you're turning toward. Fascinating. And then come back to the center. And the second new pose in this 2-week cluster of poses that Mr. Iyengar introduces is a pose called Prasarda Padottanasana, and it means extended wide apart foot pose. And it too has a seated component, okay, namely Upavishtakonasana. But can you reach forward and get your big toes? Or somewhere on your shin? Extend from the pubis through the navel, look forward. And then it also has the component where you fold forward, getting the little toe side of the foot or the outer ankles to make it be even more like Parsvakonasana. And then come all the way up. We still have one more pose to do before we do that one, okay? But since we're on the floor, I went ahead and did that one. All right, then bend your legs up. Okay. And stand up again. This pose is called Parsvakonasana. It's in week 1, 2, 3, and 4. So cluster it with the poses that are the beginning centrality of Light Yoga. And it is the pose where you try and bring your hands behind your back into prayer position. Now, some people find that very, very difficult to do, if not impossible. It is interesting that Mr. Iyengar asks that we do it from the beginning of these poses. But he also, in Light and Yoga, if you look the pose up, he gives options where you can kind of just hold on to your wrist with your hands. There's also an option that maybe you can grab your elbows, okay? But the hand goes back behind the back, right? So here's how I do it, because I have pretty tight shoulders and I have tight wrists. Okay? So what I like to do is stretch the arm out, and I actually hold my shoulder blade with the other hand, and I kind of push the shoulder blade in. Then I turn my palm, bend the elbow, put the hand behind, and so that gives a little spacer for the inside of my shoulder, kind of like holding the knee in Padmasana work, right? And then I bring my hand up my back. Then I let go with the arm and use the other hand and lift it up a little bit more. And then I sneak, okay? Dante. I sneak my other hand up. Hey, Dante, stop. Okay, and once your hands are back behind your back, lengthen up from the tailbone through the head and roll your shoulders back. And can you push your hands a little bit more together behind you? It works better for me, and then release your hands. Dante, come on. Go up. Go to Jeff. There you go. Good boy. All right. So try it on the other side. You can use your hand, and you're also, it's not just a spacer. You're actually, you can probably feel the hardness of your shoulder blade. Can you actually push your shoulder blade in a little bit? Reach your arm out, bend the elbow, keep the elbow out wide, and bring your hand up your back. Okay. Then let go. Use the other hand, and maybe you can lift it up a little bit more. And then sneak your other arm in. That actually went really well for me on my second side. Okay, so I've been doing, this is a hard pose for me. Okay? But I have to say, having spent 4 weeks doing it pretty much every day, it's a lot better. I tend to avoid it just because my shoulders are tight, okay? But don't avoid it. And then release, and my wrists are tight. Okay. But again, if it's too much, you always have this option, or even just keeping your hands on your hips. Okay. All right, so now, again, put your left foot back at the wall, if you have the wall. Take a big step forward with your right leg. Same situation. Back leg needs to stay straight. Okay. All right, then add your arms, if you can, into Paschimottanasana Namaskarasana. Then here's another stage of the pose. You have to look up toward the ceiling, and now you've got your fingers to help open the chest, and your right forearm can actually help you rotate your ribs a little bit so they're straight. Press your back heel into the wall so it's straight. Come forward and bring your head down toward your shin, and look toward your foot rather than your shin, and that'll make your head help pull the torso down. Check in at your back leg. Have you lost your Paschimottanasana Namaskarasana, and come all the way back up. Then give your arms a break. I have been in Iyengar classes where they make your hands stay there forever. But I'm a compassionate Iyengar yoga teacher. All right, second side. Thank you, Melinda. All right, there you go. Okay. Oh yeah, Kirsten, you're just gonna be on the chair, right? And Tay, you got something there. Okay, so same dilemma. The torso wants to go with the back leg, right? And the back leg wants to bend. So straighten the back leg, turn the torso. Then add your arms, maybe putting the other arm in first. Oh, there you go. Now, extend from the elbows through the wrist bones and see if you can get them together. Okay. Extend from the little finger up through your chest and look up toward the ceiling and arch back. This stage of arching back is also really important because it has 3 poses in this opening sequences where you do that stage. And then fold forward. Bring your forehead or your head down toward your shin. And then look toward the floor in front of you as you do that. And your chin goes a little bit lower toward your shin, and you'll feel more extension in the spine. And then come all the way up. And then come into Tadasana and let your head relax. Sorry, hands relax. All right, this pose also has, let's say, a cousin in the Supta Padangusthasana cycle sequence, namely Supta Padangusthasana 1. Kirsten and Okay, you're gonna do Supta Padangusthasana 2 again. Or just stay at the 90-degree angle if that feels okay to you. All right, so you're gonna lie down on the floor. Have your piece of fabric, strap, rope, dog leash. You can even use, like, if you have any of those plastic, like TheraBands, that'll work too. Bend up both legs and put the strap around the arch of your right foot and then straighten out your right leg. Hold on to both parts of the strap with your hands. Okay. Keep your arms straight. That's the same Dandasana thing that we were doing at the beginning of class. Okay. Get your legs straight here. Okay. Then hold on to the strap with just your right hand and see if you can pull your legging closer to your torso. And maybe you can actually grab your big toe. Okay. This pose also has a sit-up component. Okay, so you're gonna exhale, do a sit-up and draw your pubis and your navel toward each other, and the forehead and the shin move closer to each other. And then straighten out your bottom leg, okay, and you've got that same Virabhadrasana 1 intensity of the bottom leg. The more you pull your top leg in toward you, the more the bottom leg has to stretch. Right? And then lower your head down toward the floor. Bend your knee. And then straighten both legs out into Supta Tadasana. All right, second side. Start off with your legs bent. That just keeps the groin out of the equation for a while. Right. Then put the strap on the ball of the foot and first get your legs straight in this 90-degree angle. Spread your toes. Pull on the strap with the little toe side of the foot particularly. Then pull your leg in closer to you. Maybe you can get your big toe with your 2 fingers and your thumb. Then exhale, do a sit-up if appropriate by drawing your pubis and your navel toward each other and pull the leg even closer to you by pulling with your arm. Okay. All right, then add the bottom leg, Virabhadrasana 1, showing up again. Parjakonasana back, Rita Trikonasana back leg, Parjvottanasana back leg. Pull a little bit more, sit up a little bit higher, then lower your torso back down and see if you can pull your leg just a little bit more. All right, and then lower the leg down. Bend your knees, roll to your side, and get your blankets again, but this time we're gonna sit on them without the diagonal. And in fact, we may not sit on them at all. Okay. So the arm behind hands behind the back. The first one we learned is what we just did, the Shima Namastarasana, right? That is the beginning of learning how to make the wrap in a variety of twisting poses. I like Marichyasana 1, Marichyasana 3. We're going to do Marichyasana 1. Okay. All right, I'm right now up on 2 blankets. Okay. And then I'm going to bend my leg up. It's more closed in than Parjvakonasana, so it's more like Vrikshasana leg, actually, except forward. Okay. So, but I want to lean forward and reach my arm out to the side. And then I'm going to wrap and turn away from the leg. And then I'm going to try and put my arm behind me and the other arm behind me and turn and rotate. Yeah. Now, take a look at see how my arm is on the top of the knee? Yeah. Ideally, you want it to be lower down on the shin and turn. So that works for me sometimes. Is once I've got the arm in place, I can actually then fold forward and snuggle it down a little bit more and then turn. Okay. But this pose, there's a certain dilemma with it because on the one hand, you want blankets because it descends the groin and makes it easier to lift. But I'm on the blankets right now, but it makes it harder to get the torso down the leg. And you see where my knee is with respect to my shoulder and my torso. But if like it's right here. If I slide off of the blankets, see how it makes my knee be higher up on my torso? Okay. It's pretty amazing. Okay. So I'm gonna, and then ideally turn away from the leg. That will make it hopefully easier for me one day, okay, to get the arm in a better position. So I'm gonna stretch the arm out, Push the arm and the shin against each other. Okay. Now, sometimes I also use the other hand to hold the leg in place. But then just like we did in Namaskarasana, bend the elbow, wrap your arm around your leg. If it hurts your shoulder, don't do it. Okay. You just can stay in this upright stage of the pose. But just wanting you to see that the wrap, okay, we first learn in Parshvottanasana, and that pose is in the first 4 weeks. Okay. So this is another really important component of the beginning stages of the yoga practice. Okay. Just because it was really fun for me, I'm going to start up on the blankets and just try and just see what it does make it easier to lean forward, okay, for me. So that's the benefit of the blanket. Yeah. But it makes it harder to wrap, particularly if you have, like me, have short legs, long torso. So when I wrap, my arm tends to slide up. So I'm going to slide it back down, okay, turn away, and then I'm just clasping on my shorts behind me. And this is Marichyasana 1, twist only. Okay. Then come out of the pose, slide down. Okay, so now my leg is higher up on my torso, like tall people with long legs, how they have that automatically, right, Leanne? Okay, all right. Then move your torso away from your leg. You can even start turning here. Okay. Lean forward and then stretch your arm out to the side, turn away. And for me, it works really well to hold the leg in place. Then turn, slide my arm down, turn, and then swing your other arm way around behind you. Now push that knee into the shoulder blade and turn still more. Marichyasana 1. And stretch your legs out. Stretch your legs out wide again. You can go back on your blankets now if you want. You're getting ready to stand up and basically do the same pose. Okay. So put your hands in front of you first and look forward. Flex your toes back. Okay. So this is like the first stage of a pose we're getting ready to do, standing up. Okay. Then there is this, it's not in Light and Yoga, but it's a perfectly acceptable variation. Hold on to your ankles with your hands, bend your elbows, and exhale, if appropriate, fold forward toward the floor. And then come all the way back up. Pull your legs in toward each other. And then stand up. And we'll do exactly the same thing. So stand with your legs out wide. Spread your toes, straighten your quadriceps and your inner thighs. Fold forward and bring your hands down to the floor, first in front of you, right underneath your shoulders. Look forward. Oh, I forgot an important stage. Come back up, put your hands on your hips. This pose, like Vira 1 and Parshvottanasana, have this opening stage where you do a bit of a back bend. Yeah. So you get this opening in the front body and you throw your head back. That's planting seeds for drop back someday. And keeping your legs strong, keeping the sides of the torso long, fold forward and bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Turn your biceps toward the front of the room like we did when we were holding onto the strap. The second stage of the pose, you bring your hands back in line with your feet, but still look forward. So this is stretching. This is a lot on the wrist. So if it's too much, you can walk your hands a little forward. But that stretch on the wrist is actually very therapeutic for the wrist if you can bear it, because it puts it through different ranges of motion. Okay, then you're going to fold forward and first just put the crown of the head on the floor if you can. Okay. This stage of the pose is a substitute for headstand. So when we do headstand in a little while, if you don't do headstand, you can come back and do this, and I'll give you some other variations. Okay. But since we hold on to, there's other stages of the pose. Now you would be on the crown of your head. Hold on to your outer ankles with your hands, lift your shoulders up, and then pull your torso in a little bit more and come a little bit to the back of the head. They're both really good variations. But if you do it as shoulder stand replacement, you're going to stay right on the crown of the head. Okay. If you're doing it as the pose itself, you can start on the crown of the head and then move forward. Okay. And then come all the way back up or move back on the head. All right. Okay. Another thing that's really interesting about looking at these sequences is just looking at where poses appear. Okay? And Shirshasana headstand does not appear actually until like week 14. Okay? But a lot of you do headstand, and I don't want us not to do headstand for 14 weeks together, so I'm inserting it into the sequence. But it is interesting to think, okay, 14 weeks of standing poses must prepare people to do headstand safely, right? So all the work in the standing poses is building up the strength in the shoulders and the neck that you need to do headstand safely, okay? So those of you who are doing headstand, okay, go ahead and go into headstand. Those of you who aren't doing headstand or haven't been taught it, and a lot of you are not on video, and if you've never learned headstand, I'm actually not going to teach headstand prep today. I would like for you not doing headstand either to go out wide and put the crown of your head on the floor. If it doesn't reach, you can put a block right on the crown of the head. Or your other option would be to stand with the feet hip width apart, fold forward, and either hold your elbows with your hands or hold your fingertips or put your fingertips on the floor so that the head is just going down toward the floor. Okay, so those are the two headstand options. But if you are doing headstand, now's the time. Okay. That looks good. I'm coming up to get a closer look at you. Vicki, that looks really, really good. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, nice variation. Okay. Kristen, you could do Supta Baddha Konasana, you could sit in Baddha Konasana. Kristen, whatever you feel is comfortable and appropriate to you. Oh, I forgot that we usually do downward facing dog before this, but that's okay because we're kind of running out of time. All right. Leanne, extend a little bit more through your inner heels. So that if you can bring your legs a little closer together, do so. I think it'll help you with your balance. Okay. Again, if you're not doing headstand and you don't want to do either of those two poses, another thing you could do would just be to sit in Baddha Konasana on the floor. Okay, that's another completely fine option. Also, if you know downward facing dog would also work as another option. Okay. Any of those things will work. Okay. Marsha, move your ribs back and extend up through your inner heels. Okay. That's Leanne, you did a good job with your feet. Melinda, that looks pretty good. A little bit, Melinda, it looks like your right heel is a little short, so scrub up the wall with your right heel, even them out. Chaya, can you walk in a little bit with your feet now so your shoulders are right over your elbows? Good. That looks good, Monica. It's a nice downward facing dog. Melissa, if you can walk your feet a little further backward away from your hands, that's it. Now give a good push with your hands forward and see if you can get the weight of the pose back into your legs. So that looks good. Jyoti, that looks like that's an excellent Baddha Konasana. Pratima, it looks to me like you're a little bit on the too much on the forehead, but if you're doing that for a specific reason, that's fine. Okay. And good, Laura, that also is a nice looking downward facing dog. See if you can get your weight a little bit, maybe make your feet a little wider apart and then push the hands down into the floor so the weight really gets down to the legs. Okay. That looks just fine, Karen Higgins. All right, those of you who I haven't said anything to, please don't feel excluded. It's just that I can't see you. Okay, but I'm confident that you're doing an excellent job. Okay, now on the way down, everyone press your forearms down, lift your shoulders up, and then lower yourself all the way down to the floor. And then rest in a pose called downward facing child's pose. Downward facing child's pose is when you sit on your heels, if it's comfortable to you. If it's not appropriate for you, you can just sit in whatever pose that is comfortable to you. Okay, but this is a pose that we often do after headstand. Okay. It just cools the brain, relaxes the neck if any strain came to the neck. All right, then come all the way up. Tay and Kirsten, you're going to go set up for some version of Satubandha off of a bolster. Okay. All right, so the next pose in this sequence both week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, is shoulder stand. Then plow pose, then shavasana. Okay, so that's interesting to think about. A lot of people hate shoulder stand. Okay, but Mr. Iyengar puts it in the very first week of poses. Okay? So again, that's what I think that's one of the big ones, okay, that we got to be, working toward. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily do full shoulder stand, because there are lots of poses that build up to it. Okay? We're going to do one that builds up toward shoulder stand that's called Chatushpadasana, actually. Okay. All right. So Chatushpadasana looks like this. You're going to lie on the floor and have your knees bent again. Then hold on to the sides of the sticky mat with your hands and pull the sticky mat away from your shoulders again. And you'll feel that lower back get long. Now, bend your elbows, push the upper arms into the floor, and you'll feel your chest lift. Then keep bending the elbows and lift your buttocks up. Now, as you lift your buttocks up, oh, look, front groin again. There's some resistance there. So can I use my hamstrings and my buttocks to get a little bit more opening in the front groin? Push your upper arms down, and then energetically slide your heels toward your shoulder blades, and you'll feel more opening in the chest. Right, and then lower yourself down to the floor. We're going to do that 2 more times. If you can, you're going to interlace your fingers underneath your buttocks with your arms straight. If you can't, you can keep your arms just at your side, or you can continue with the bent arm action. Okay. So I'm going to hold on to the sticky mat with my hands and lift my buttocks up, tuck my shoulders in, check that my hamstrings and buttocks are working. Then I'm going to see, can I interlace my fingers together underneath my buttocks? Okay. Then move your finger knuckles toward your heels, and energetically pull your heels toward your finger knuckles and feel that opening in the chest. Notice which finger you have on top. I've got my left finger on top. Then I'm going to lower down and do it with the opposite finger across. So push your feet down and lift your buttocks up high. Okay. Lift them up by lifting the buttocks up, but also by engaging the hamstrings and the buttocks. Then interlace your fingers the opposite way. Pull on this, move your knuckles toward your heels and move your heels toward your shoulder blades to get the chest open. And then lower yourself down. That's basically getting you ready to do shoulder stand. We've only got 5 minutes left of class. Okay. So what we're going to do for the legs of shoulder stand, okay, is just pull our legs up the wall. Okay. And then we're going to come out of that, okay, do a seated forward bend, because that's like Kalasana, and then come into Shavasana. Okay. So you're going to go to a wall, sit sideways of the wall, lie down, and swing yourself around so your legs are up the wall. If you don't have wall space where you can do this, okay, you can just lay flat on the floor in Shavasana, okay? But if you do have wall space where you can get your legs up the wall, do it. So those 2 poses together, Chatushpadasana and legs up the wall pose, are basically like shoulder stand. They both give you Jalandhara Bandha. You're getting, that's fine. And anyone who does just want to go up into shoulder stand quickly, you're welcome to. Okay. But know that shoulder stand, okay, is there from the very beginning of Iyengar Yoga. And it's in every single sequence in the back of the book. So it must be pretty important. So if you're in shoulder stand, great. If you're in legs up the wall pose, also wonderful. And if you've taken an early Shavasana, also fine. Now, those of you in shoulder stand, go ahead and come into plow pose, because that's the actual sequence. Okay? And then you'll roll yourself out of plow pose and come into Paschimottanasana, or seated forward bend. For those of you in legs up the wall pose, push yourself away from the wall. Okay? Stretch your legs out in front of you. have your feet out wide if it's hard to fold forward, or if you need to accommodate the baby, then you just would stay in the concave shape. But this pose, Paschimottanasana, is really just an upside down halasana, right? So we learn, interestingly, halasana first before we learn Paschimottanasana in this outlay of the sequences. And then from Paschimottanasana, just roll yourself down into Shavasana. You can put a little bit of something underneath your head. Gloria reminded us this last weekend, if you're in an active state of grief, it's a good idea to have a blanket or a bolster underneath your chest and another blanket for your head so that you have a little bit more support underneath your torso. It's also good for breathing. So you could pick that pose. You can also put something underneath your knees if it bothers your back. Any of those things, to lay flat, any of those things are fine. For me, laying flat on my back is actually feeling pretty good today. It doesn't always. They come into Shavasana, corpse pose. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. And clench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Completely relax the features of your face. Become quiet within. So this particular sequence was pretty well based on standing poses, but we also did a good bit of seated work and twists. So pretty really well-rounded. Did a little bit of every action. A little bit of backward bending, a little bit of forward bending, a little bit of twisting, some standing poses, a little bit of forward bending. So you might say that's a full spectrum practice that we did today. So just reflect on what we did. Reflect on the quality of your Shavasana, because Shavasana feels different depending on the kind of practice you do. And that's another way that you build up, what I was mentioning before, that sense of viveka, awareness, discrimination. So when you begin to notice that, you can then make more informed choices for yourself about what kind of practice you need when you're practicing on your own. There are quite a few classes on the Yoga Tree webpage and YouTube, not on webpage, but if you look on YouTube, there are quite a few classes that Jonathan has recorded of me teaching. So I only teach one class a week at Yoga Tree, but there are plenty of options online if you want to take some other classes. Then place your hands on your rib cage, bend your knees, roll over to your right side, and sit up. I'm sitting in Virasana on a bolster, but you can sit in whatever way you want. Sit up straight and tall, close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. Oh, good, Susanna, I'm glad you thought it was wonderful. In gratitude to the benefit you receive from your practice of yoga. In gratitude to the people you have the opportunity to learn and study and practice yoga with. And in gratitude to the lineage of Hatha Yoga itself, is practiced by BKS Iyengar, reaching back to the sages of India and down through a line of teachers and students to you here on the mat in Austin, Texas, or Paris, France, wherever you happen to be in the world, through the miracle of Zoom. Namaste.